All right, welcome back here. Let me just get my screen centered. I'm trying these backgrounds so that the video quality is better. The black was showing like way too many flyaways in my hair. So now we're trying white. I actually think it's a little bit better. It's nice and bright. It's nice and bright. I don't know, maybe that's a good thing, bad thing. Who knows? Anyway, welcome back to Ask a Clutter Boss. This is the internet's best weekly decluttering advice show. And I am your host, Jess Marcy. I am so happy to be back here with you today. We have some great questions as usual. I laugh sometimes when I go and read the questions because inevitably we're asking about paper, 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 paper. I mean, let me know in the comments. Are you struggling with paper? It is, there's the two most asked about questions when it comes to clutter are paper and then like memorabilia and sentimental items. So if you're struggling with either of those categories, you are not alone. Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us live. Carrie, Madonna, Denise, Marie, Debbie, Mitzi. So nice to see you guys here. So, okay, paper. Yeah, paper is a real issue. My general advice with paper, it never ends. I know, Debbie. I know. My general advice with paper is to keep as little as humanly possible. And the less keeper, the less paper you keep, the more you realize how little paper you need and the easier your life is. Paper is one of those categories. The problem with paper is it comes in without you doing anything. So you get unsolicited paper delivered to your house every single day. How crazy is that? Like, stop and think about that for a second. Every single day, you get paper delivered to your house that you didn't ask for and don't want every single day. And then you have to make a decision on all of that paper. That's wild. I don't think when we set up the United States Postal Service that the point was to be delivering papers that you didn't want to your house every single day. It was for like nice personal letters or business correspondence, right? That's why we have the US Postal Service. But man, we have really gotten off the rails with how we use that. In addition to the post office delivering like mail coming in, we get paper from so many other places. I mean, you go to a doctor's appointment and you walk out with 25 pieces of paper. You go to the pharmacy. Oh my gosh, the pharmacy, the most ridiculous amount of paper ever. Good morning, Karen. Let me know in the comments, where do you find you get a lot of unnecessary paper? Unnecessary paper. Give me some spots. Receipts, right there, like so long, unnecessary, especially in the digital age where you can get a lot of receipts via email. And I'll talk about this. I'll touch on this briefly for a second. I know I have not actually even read a question yet, but I'm telling you, there's questions about paper in here. The doctor's office, it is just, it, it is insane. Stop giving me paper. Stop giving me paper. The VA, oh yeah, all of these government run organizations. School, another one, sends home an awful lot of paper. I forgot where I was going with my train of thought. Maybe I should get to these questions. All right. Number one. Okay, let me find, okay, struggling with decluttering paper documents, what to keep. That is a good question about paper. Let me see. There was another one in here. Okay, here's the other question about paper. My struggle is the pile of papers on the end of the dining room table that I have to weed through. There's things to keep, but nowhere to store them. So that's I mean, we're talking about paper there, but that's a different issue we're going to touch on. Struggling with paper documents. So I kind of answered that already. But here's the thing. A lot of the paper that we hang on to is because we don't know if we need to keep it or not. We're not sure. We have a big question mark. Whenever we have a big question mark with clutter, we keep because we're afraid to toss. So question marks equal keep. So if you have big question marks around the paper documents that you have or anything else, this could apply to memorabilia, especially like family stuff. Anytime there's a question mark, should I keep this? I encourage you to seek out an answer from an expert. So if you have medical documents, Ask your doctor, what do you advise me to keep? Just get information from people who are in the know, or ask your insurance company, do I need to keep this? Do you have a copy of this? Is there a copy in my email? Ask your accountant, your lawyer, like any of those sort of experts. What do I actually need to keep? Talk to your significant other or the people that you're taking care of or the people that you live with. What do we need to keep? Give yourself guidelines, because in the absence of guidelines, there are question marks, and question marks equal keep. But if you give yourself my personal guideline of papers that I need to keep, write it out, be very specific. Then, when you're going through this unsolicited garbage that comes into your house every single day, you can compare the document to the guideline. Do I need to keep this? Yes or no? Then you have an answer. And then at least the stuff that you need to keep, you've thought out, you have a reason for keeping it, you've discussed it with other people. Like, we just need to eliminate some of these question marks from the equation. In general, though, paper, I'm telling you, the least amount that you can possibly keep is the amount that you want to keep, the least amount possible. Our paper situation in our house, what we're actually hanging on to in this house personally is like maybe that much. It's so little. Now, granted, we don't have a lot of extenuating circumstances here. We're very average when it comes to, things going on. But yeah, I was just kind of lamenting last week or 2 weeks ago. I have 2 teenage daughters, one's going to college next year, and it was an election season. So we were getting the amount of unsolicited paper that was coming into this house was at an all-time high. All-time high there. So I wonder if any college has ever actually gotten a student to go there from sending some unsolicited mail. I every day I open the mailbox. I'm like, are we going to consider this college because they sent us a postcard or they sent us a huge amount of material? I don't know. Does that work? Is that a tactic that works? Maybe it is. Seems like a lot of people are doing it. Okay. Anyway, that was my side note. Let's talk about this question. My struggle is the pile of papers on the end of the dining room table that I have to weed through. There are things to keep, but nowhere to store them. So we need to talk about this, know where to store them. First and foremost, you need a house that is functional. If your house is not functional, you're not going to like it. It's going to be overwhelming. Like, the opposite of functional is overwhelming. Do you have a different opposite of functional? In my mind, the opposite of something functional is maybe the opposite of functional is frustrating. So if it's not functional, it's frustrating. If it's frustrating, it's overwhelming. If your house is not functional, and that's what we always try to get organized to make things functional. But what we tend to do is we hang on to things because we're not sure if we should keep them or we're afraid to throw them out. And our space is full of big question marks instead of using it to create function in our life. And this is exactly what is going on in this comment here. My struggle is the pile of papers on the end of the dining room table that I have to weed through. There are things to keep, but nowhere to store them. So forget about what you want to keep right now. If you need certain things, if you must have certain things in your life for you to function or for you to make your life easier, think of it as like a want versus a need, right? If you have things that you need to keep, then those things need to have storage in your house. And I am not suggesting that you go out and buy bins or extra stuff to make more storage. The stuff that you need to keep needs to go into the storage that exists in your house. The closets, if you have a desk, a dresser, if you already have storage, the stuff that you need to keep, not want to keep, need to keep, needs to have a permanent home in a permanent storage situation in your house. If you have permanent storage situations, closets, um, cupboards, those are permanent storage situations. So this is how we kind of start prioritizing what stays where. If it is a need, if it is a storage need or a keeping need, or if this item is something that you need to keep, it needs to have a permanent home in your house, or semi-permanent anyway, until you don't need it anymore. So if you have a lot of stuff that you want or that you don't even want, but you're just keeping because you spent money on it or just in case, and that stuff is taking up all of the prime storage real estate in your house is never going to be functional. You need, and by functional, this is what we mean. You have a table, a dining room table that is a drop zone, which is totally okay. Like, it is okay to have drop zones in our house. But the problem, as we say at Clutter Boss, is don't let a drop zone become a stay zone. So you have a dining room table and there's a pile of papers on it because it's a drop zone. You need to weed through it, but you can't because there's nowhere to store the items to keep. So basically, you've turned a drop zone into a stay zone, and you've taken a tabletop, which has a function that is to sit and eat, to sit and do work, to sit and do projects. I mean, the purpose of tables is to use them for things like eating meals, doing craft projects, sitting and putting your computer there and doing work, doing some planning. I mean, or even as a temporary drop zone, those flat surfaces are amazing to put your groceries on, drop your mail on. But if any of those things becomes permanent in that situation, so it is a stay zone, not a drop zone, your mail is living there because you have no place else for it to go, you've taken away the functionality of that space. So we want to make sure that we have the most functional spaces possible. If you have stuff that you need to keep, and this person said, there's things I need to keep, but nowhere to store them, then what you need to do is create storage for that thing, those things in your house, permanent storage, right? And all the other stuff that you're hanging on to just in case, or because I think I might use it in the future, or because I like it. Get that stuff out of your house. It does not belong there. It is just draining your energy because you don't have the functional space that you need to not be overwhelmed every day. Is this making sense, Maria? I know I'm really using the same words over and over and over again here, but is this landing right? Is this like, we need to have functional space? We need to keep things. Those things need to have storage. I mean, this is it's basic, but nobody's ever said it. So even though it's basic, nobody ever taught us this. So just let me know in the comments, is this landing? Is it making sense? I know there's a slight delay between when I'm talking and the live stream is happening and then time for people to respond. So taking that into consideration. Oh, awesome, Heather. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This topic kind of goes into, it's a good segue into some of these other questions that we got today. So awesome. Thank you, Madonna. Amazing. Let's read through some of these other questions. Thank you. Okay. So one of the other questions that was submitted is, I'm struggling with sewing materials that I've had for years, some big pieces and lots that I am no longer in love or in like with. I'm not doing so much sewing, but money is suddenly tight due to helping out a family member who has been out of work with a serious illness. Should I keep these sewing materials in case I need them, sell them, although I'm retired and life has gotten very busy with caring? I also have a new hobby of watercolors and enough materials to start, but I think of my sewing hobby and so many shoulds, what ifs, and maybes are stopping me dead in my tracks. Okay. This is pretty much what we were talking about, that functional space. So we need our homes to be functional for their actual functions, like, an empty table to sit at and do things at, a closet that you can walk in and easily put clothing away, drawers that you can open, right? Those are like functional, that helps create functional space. But also, you want what is in your house, the things that you choose to keep, to be reflective and supportive of your life right now. And it takes a little while to kind of understand this, but and it takes some action on your part, because when I say it, it makes sense, but until you start to change what you're hanging on to, or ask these different questions, until you choose to keep only what is relevant to your life today, you don't really understand the enormous benefit of having a home that is supporting you right now. So, a home that supports you right now means that the stuff that is in it is reflective of where you are in this point in time. And I love this question because this really illuminates how this can get kind of messy and confusing when we're hanging on to things that do not reflect our life right now. Now, listen, I had a sewing phase. I was going to be a quilter. And then I got all the stuff. I got the sewing machine. It was a Christmas gift one year. Um, Fabric, all of the things, right? And it turns out I really like projects that last about an hour. And if anybody has ever quilted before, you know that we're talking about hours, many hours, multiple, multiple hours. And that's just not me. So at first, when I was looking at this enormous collection that I had amassed of sewing materials for my quilting hobby, which actually was more of like a dream and less of an actual hobby, I thought about the money. I looked at the fabric. There were so many beautiful pieces of fabric. Why would I let go of something so visually stunning? There was also fabric that was not as nice. I mean, you get like those packs of fabric, different patterns. Some of it you love, some of it, meh, but I just the time that I had spent researching this, although I guess my research hadn't revealed how time consuming it was, or maybe I had just glossed over that because I wanted to be a quilter. That was it. But I had so much emotional tie, identity tie, financial tie to these items that it felt really bad to let them go. But in the meantime, at the same time, my children were young, they were growing, they were going through one phase after another phase after another phase. I was working, and I because I am slightly entrepreneurial in spirit, I had probably like 3 side gigs going on, and I have a little hobby farm. I mean, I had so much in my life that was happening, and the sewing was clearly not reflective of the point in life that I was at. It was not supporting my life at all because it was something that I wanted to do, but didn't want to spend the time doing. And I had such a mixed emotional relationship with the materials that it wasn't actually bringing me joy to hang on to this stuff. It wasn't adding function, it wasn't adding joy. It was really actually kind of bringing me down because I felt bad and all negative about the stuff. And once you start to realize, I'm hanging on to this stuff, but it's not relevant to my life right now. And if it's not relevant to my life right now, it's actually just kind of dragging me down because I feel complicated emotions around it. It's not making me happy to have all of this stuff. I'm hanging on to it out of obligation or because it's a link to a past idea. Why am I hanging on to it? It's just taking away from my life right now. It is taking away from my life right now. And when you can come to that conclusion and you can start to see some clarity around what is relevant to your life right now and what is just, if it's not relevant to the life that you are living right now, today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, right now, is it relevant to your life right now? Once you get clarity around that, it makes it a lot easier to say, this just has to go. Because if it's not helping me, it's hurting me. And having stuff that is not supporting your life is actually taking away from your life. It is taking your time. It is taking your physical and emotional energy. It is stealing from you. And the craziest thing is that you're allowing it to steal from you. And I was allowing it to steal from me. I mean, this is when I say you, me, this is us. This is us. We are all in this together. We all struggle with the same stuff here. When you choose to put yourself first and say, I no longer want this stuff to be taking away from my life. I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of energy. I cannot be giving my precious time and energy to stuff that is just a drain at this point. Who cares how much money I spent on it? Who cares what my plans were? I had plans and that was awesome. When I sat in that moment and I thought about the quilting that I was going to do and I let my imagination run wild. That was a great experience. I loved sitting and feeling how that would feel and walking down that path in my head. That was great. Okay, so I had that experience. I accidentally went and then purchased all the stuff. But actually, what I just really got from that was the idea that I could quilt. I learned something. That's good. But I don't need to justify this imaginary fun time by keeping this stuff that is now taking away from my life. It is taking away from my life. Can you get to that point? Can you get to that point? And to the person who wrote this question in, actually, I think the question was posted in one of our Facebook groups. You're helping out, you're retired, and your life is very busy with caring. You have a new hobby of watercolors and enough materials to start doing that. And my sewing hobby is full of shoulds, what ifs, and maybes that are stopping me dead in my tracks. Actually, it just says stopping me dead, but I assume that it meant dead in my tracks. But I mean, you're actually using the word dead when you're referring to a sewing hobby. You could always get more sewing stuff in the future if you wanted to. You deserve to have a home that supports you as you are doing this incredible act for somebody else, supporting them, caring for them, taking care of a family member who means more to you than anything else. You deserve to have a home to support you as you're doing that. You are more important than however much money you spent on the sewing or the projects or the should-haves, would-haves, could-haves. You're more important. What you're doing right now is more important. Give yourself that functional space. So you can actually take out your watercolors and sit and do those watercolors. It's a new hobby. You love it. Give yourself the space. It is okay to let go of this past hobby. And I would say only try and sell it if you're actually going to make a significant amount of money. If you're going to spend hours of your time selling this stuff and to get like 20 bucks, definitely not worth it. Not worth it. So let it go. I mean, I love also here that you said I have some big pieces and lots that I'm no longer in love or in like with. If you do not even love or like the stuff that you have in your house, let it go. You are more important. You are more important. All right. And we're going to wrap up with this last question, which I adore this question. It was in the comments from last time. So thank you for whoever wrote this in. My question, after a lot of decluttering, and I'm not done yet, I'm struggling with a few empty drawers and shelves. How do I decide how to use these spaces? I've never had this problem before. Available space. What do I do? Thank you. It's my happy problem, but seriously, I don't want more stuff stuffed in there. Okay. This is such a great problem to have. And you do get to this point as you continue down this journey of decluttering. Decluttering is a lifelong thing. As long as you're bringing stuff into your house, you're going to be decluttering. But when you're doing this big declutter in the beginning, and the beginning might be a couple of years long, that's okay. When you're doing this big declutter, where you basically realize, because you've been listening to me for years now, and you realize that you are living well outside of the storage space that you have. Your home is not reflective of your life today, and your home is not functional. You realize that the goal in the beginning is to live within your storage space, to declutter until you're living within your storage space, declutter until you have functional space, and to declutter until you have a home that reflects your life right now. So that's kind of like round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You're getting to this goal of living within the space that you have. And you will get there if you continue to stop the flow in, increase the flow out, and know that your end point is to live within the space that you have. And I think this is so key. I don't hear other professionals in this industry ever talking about what the goal actually is. You're running a marathon right now, nice and slow. Maybe you're walking. It's maybe you're crawling. I felt like I crawled my marathon when I did this in the beginning. It doesn't matter. You're moving on this path forward, right? Nobody ever tells you what the end goal is. They say you should declutter, maybe you want to be a minimalist. I mean, they throw out all these words. What's the actual goal? Like you're just running and running or walking or crawling or whatever it is. You're on this race course. What's the finish line? What's the finish line? The finish line is when you are living comfortably within the storage space that you have. And we're not talking about plastic drawers. We're not talking about storage that you added bins and bins piled up in a corner. No, we're talking about living comfortably within the storage space that reasonably exists within your house, right? So a bedroom might have a nightstand, a dresser, a closet. That's your comfortable storage space. That's your goal. The goal is to live within the space that you have. Now, once you hit that goal, and you will, if you continue to do this, you will hit that goal. Your life will be so much easier, so much easier. And then you're going to wonder, oh my gosh, I have empty space. What do I do with it? My answer about what to do with empty space is for right now, let it be empty. Like when you get to this point, it can feel uncomfortable to have empty space because we're always taught to fill every space that we have. So number one, we need to break this habit feeling lesson that we learned that we have to fill every space. So we need to get more comfortable with empty space. And then we need to let that space breathe. Like it has held so much for so long. Let it breathe for a little while. And you will find over time, something is going to go into that space that needs to be in that space. You are going to maybe be at a point in life where you develop a new hobby and you need some storage for that hobby. And oh my gosh, here you go. You have some storage for that hobby right here. You're going to start to see how the amount that you need to keep in your life fluctuates. And sometimes you're going to have some empty space, and sometimes you're going to have less empty space. And when you start to get that less empty space, the light bulb's going to go off. You're going to declutter, and you're going to have space that can just expand and contract for the life, the stuff that you need in your life to support your life right now. So you really want to think of your space more like this. Other things can happen too in life, where, when I think about like our space expanding and contracting, as we get older, sometimes it's hard or dangerous for us to be reaching very high in like those upper cabinets to get stuff, or possibly it's difficult to bend down or pull something out heavy. And in that case, having that empty space gives you the ability to store things at an optimal height for your safety. So, I mean, there's so many different reasons why having like this fluidity in our space makes sense. And I would encourage you just to keep it empty. I mean, maybe if you have a picture that you love, you could put your picture there, but just enjoy the space as it is. Value the empty space, knowing that that is really a symbol of future possibilities. And we don't need to fill up every space that we have. All right. There's a lot of comments here. I will go back and read through the comments for next week because there's just so many in here. I do quickly see this one. How do I get rid of fabric? Call around. You can bring fabric to those donation bins, those like clothing donation bins. They're actually like textile recycling bins would be a better way to describe those. Sometimes there are crafting supply not-for-profits that will take them. I know in the Capital District of New York, we have an organization that takes donations of craft supplies and then resells it to the public. I think that they have that some places. The classic Buy Nothing group, your local Buy Nothing group, somebody might want it on there. A simple post onto Facebook might help. But those are some ideas. So good luck. All right. Remember, as we move forward, you deserve a home that you love. And more importantly, you deserve a home that functions. And there is a way, a path forward. You just have to be ruthless in putting yourself and your sanity before the stuff every day. If you find that you're struggling to make a decision and you're fighting with yourself, should I keep this? Should I let this go? You're really fighting against yourself. And if you can take all of that energy that you are spending fighting against yourself and instead fight for yourself. Fight for yourself. Fight for your space. Fight for your sanity. Fight for yourself. Take that energy and put yourself first. And most likely the person you have to fight the hardest against is you. um yeah, put yourself first. You deserve it. Sending you all lots of love. I will see you same time, same place next week. Have a great rest of your day.